Alright, this demonstration we're going to talk about string functions. What I've done is I took my basic PHP page and I went ahead and I kind of filled it out so that you wouldn't have to watch me type all this stuff. So just to give you a brief overview of what we're looking at is that we've got an H1 with string functions. This little section is basically just to let the user of the web page understand what it is that we're doing so that this is actually useful to you later. This part right here is HTML, but it's in code tags, so it looks like code. And then I went ahead and I put some heading labels here to show you what it is that we're actually doing. And then if you jump into code view, you'll see I've just got a bunch of empty PHP brackets so that we can actually try to do some tests. Okay, so here we've got a variable called test, and it's the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. What I've done is I've changed up the cases a little bit so that we can see how things will change. And then we also have something that is called username, where we're going to sort of simulate if a user went to go fill in an input on a form and they accidentally put a bunch of spaces like at the end and at the beginning. So let's get started. Remember, we're going to first primarily be using this test function. So first thing is that we want to convert a string so that everything is lowercase. There are lots of reasons that you might want to do that. So let's just go ahead and give it a shot. And we're going to use a function called string to lower, but it's just spelled STRTOLOWER. And first thing right off the bat that you're going to notice is that a lot of the functions are really intuitive just by the name of it. STR typically stands for string. STR to lower, okay, means everything's going to go to lowercase. So you'll start to see that pattern of intuitive function names. Okay, so the way that you write the function is that you put the function here, but then you have to pass an argument into the function or pass a parameter into the function. And the parameter that we're going to pass is going to be this variable right here. This is basically a parameter argument, is basically like a filter. So we are going to use string to lower, and we're going to run that filter on the test variable. So let's do a save, and then we're going to jump into our browser, refresh this, and then you can see what's happening. Right? Originally we've got all uppercase for quick and lazy. Well, now everything is lowercase. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And let's run the thing on string to upper, and I'm just going to copy this, be really succinct, say echo, and then we're going to put the word test in here, save it, and notice that I'm not concatenating these. I should be, as a best practice, like I've told you, but the reason it's not failing is because I have a start tag and an end tag with PHP, and I'm not passing more than one parameter in any set given PHP tag. So I'm going to save that, hit refresh. You can see that's all uppercase now. Okay, and then we're just going to go through several of these. Probably should have put the echo on a lot of these, but whatever, I didn't. So, and I'll go ahead and terminate that. And so you see first, that means that the first is going to be uppercase. So that means that the first letter of the whole line has an initial cap, or the first word of the whole line has an initial cap, so just the first letter of the line. So that lowercase t that you see here, it got converted to an uppercase t. Alright, so that's the way that works. And then you see words, instead of you see first, it's going to be all words, so they're all going to get initial upper caps. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, paste it here, and I'll change this to UC words. And you can see that every single word in the whole sentence now has a capital letter. Okay. Now, there's some other stuff that you can do. Let's try this thing called string length, and it's strlen. Okay, we'll save that, and you're going to see how many characters are actually in the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, including spaces and periods, right? So there are 44 characters in total. Why is that useful to know? That can be useful, for instance, if you're trying to filter stuff for user authentication to make sure their passwords and their usernames are a minimum or a maximum number of characters, things like that. Lots of reasons. If you want to find out how long somebody's text entry is going to be so that you can say, hey, that's too many characters, that would be another example. Lots of reasons that you would use these different things. Okay, now there's another thing. It's a little bit different. So far I've just been passing in one parameter every time. It's been really straightforward. Well, there's this other thing called string, and basically it's finding a string within a string. Okay, so I'm just going to go here, and what I'm going to do for string is I'm going to go ahead and type in the parameters, but I want to show you a little trick in Dreamweaver. If you're not sure how many parameters a particular function can take, because every parameter has a special use, and most of them you have to pass them in a specific order. In Dreamweaver, one of the things that you can do is if I just start to type the function name and I type that first parenthesis, what it does is it'll jump up and it'll give me a tip about what the syntax of this function is supposed to follow. And it will give me the order in which I'm supposed to pass the parameters. So where it says haystack, right, sort of like the needle in a haystack, the haystack is the thing that you're looking in, so the string that you're looking in, so that would be test. And then the needle is the item specifically that you're looking for. So it's first you would say, all right, tell me what I'm looking in, and then tell me what I'm looking for. And when you see this thing right here that says string haystack, that means that you have to pass it as a string. You can't look for an integer or a Boolean or some other kind of data type. You have to look for string in the haystack. And then the next thing where it says mixed, that means that you are allowed to look for an array. I'm not going to talk about that just yet, but just so you know, mixed does mean something, and we'll address that a little bit later when we get to arrays. But anyway, that tells you about the order in which you need to pass the parameters. So let's do test, and then comma, and then next you could put a space or not. It's really up to you. And then you have to put the thing you're looking for. So it would be in a string format that we're looking for something. And let's say that we are looking for the word fox. Okay. And watch what this is going to do. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and we're going to go ahead and refresh. And what it does is it automatically jumps to that word if it finds it, and it prints the rest of the line. Okay. Now there's another one that's incredibly useful, and that is string replace. Okay, and it's str_replace. And you'll use this a lot. I use this all the time. So let's go ahead and start. And again, this is one that has multiple parameters. So I'm going to type my first parenthesis, and then it tells me, okay, first we're going to need, well, actually this isn't all that helpful. Oh, you know what? It's because I didn't type str_replace. That's why it's not helping me out. Okay, so I'm going to put my first parenthesis, and then it tells me, okay, first we're going to look for the search, then what we need is what we're going to replace it with, and then the last thing is, and this isn't the most logical order, but the last thing is the thing that we're looking in. Okay, so if you want to start with the last one first, right? So if you want to say, okay, well, first of all, we're looking inside of test. Okay, and then you could go kind of backwards and say, all right, well, what are we looking for? Okay, and so we're passing three parameters. First of all, what are we looking for? Let's say that we are going to, let's look at our page. Let's say that we want to look for the word, I don't know, dog. Okay, so we're looking for a string called dog, and we are going to replace it with the word cat. Okay, so first parameter in this function is the thing that you're looking for. The second parameter is the thing you're going to replace it with. And the third parameter is the thing that you're looking inside of, the string that you're looking in order to find dog and replace it with cat. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Let's do a refresh. And here you see it says the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy cat. All right, so we did a replacement. Okay, that's especially a useful tool whenever you are, let's say, trying to form URLs and file names where, or vice versa, you're trying to take URLs that have like underscores and dashes in them, and you try to strip that and replace it with a space. Vice versa could be true, you know. So anyway, string replace is very useful. Now, this other thing, the last one that we want to talk about here is called trim. There are lots and lots of string functions. These are just some really common ones that I want to go over, but there are lots more. Okay, so oops, this is supposed to say trim, not string replace. Okay. Now, we're not going to use test. We're going to use that other one. If you look up at the top, it's called username. And see how it's got spaces in here? Well, spaces are considered characters. Whenever they're inside of double quotes, it's a string character. And that's not the kind of thing that you want in a username. You don't want a bunch of spaces tagged on the end and the beginning of someone's name. So what I want to do here is I want to show you what it looks like beforehand. Now, the reason I've got this in pre-tags is, if you remember from your HTML primers and stuff, pre stands for pre-formatted. It means that anything that is inside of the pre-tags, including white space, will be counted and it will show up in the browser. So all those white space characters in front of the username up here that was set of JDoe, so these white space characters, they'll show up if they're inside of a pre-tag. So let's not run anything. Let's not run the trim function on it. First, let's just echo it, and we'll say JDoe. We're going to echo JDoe. Let's save that. Let's go here, refresh, and then, oh, oops, I'm sorry. The username variable, not the JDoe variable. Let's refresh that. And you see here, we've got all these spaces. And if it's hard for you to kind of tell, one of the things that I could do really fast is go up, since we're in the same page. I don't normally ever do this in the same page, but I don't feel like making an external style sheet for this one little demo, is I'm going to put embedded styles up in the head. And just so you know, I really do never do this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say anything for the pre tag is going to get a certain style. So let's tell it that it's going to have a background. And we'll give it a color. We'll give it some really bright color, like that. Let's save that. And we also need to go ahead and make it display type inline, because pre is normally block level, and we only want it to take up as much room as it actually needs on the line. So let's hit refresh, and then you can see here that it's showing the spaces before and after. Okay, so let's go ahead now and let's finally fix this other so that we're actually trimming it. I'm just going to paste this because I already typed it out, where we're trimming the username. So let's save that, and we'll see how it looks different here. And down below, if I scroll down, you can see that it stripped the spaces before and after. And so we're pretty much all good there. And that's going to do it for the end of this demonstration on strings. And you can just get started trying to do this stuff yourself.